Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new, my name is Joni and thanks so much for joining me today for this painting tutorial. I'm working on an 11 by 14 double primed and stretched canvas. I just painted over an older canvas with some gray, and the gray that I'm using, though you can use any gray that you want, I'm just using slate gray, and I applied 2 coats. I let it dry, and I've got the following colors that I'm going to be using today, and I may add a few more to this. Be sure to check out the list of all the colors I'm using below this video in the description box. I have titanium white, lemon neon yellow, neon red, turquoise aqua green, phthalo cyan blue, and Mars black. So what I want to do is start working on old-fashioned kind of vintage looking cozy scene, and maybe a few other things. I haven't really completely planned it out. This is just spur of the moment and painting on the spot for you guys intuitively. So I hope you enjoy this one and you want to paint along. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give this video a like. So I'm going to be using my number 30 filbert brush to start. It's just a little bit wet, and I'm going to take a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of red. Make a really soft peachy color, and I'm just going to add it around the center of the canvas, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more. Remember, we're going to frame it in, so it doesn't really matter what the outside edges look like. Take a little bit more. And a little bit more of the red. Now I'm using a few neon colors, but keep in mind you can use any red or yellow that you have. It doesn't really matter. It will change it slightly. The hue will be a little bit different than what I'm showing you today, but it'll still look really pretty. However, if you want to purchase these paints, they're by Holbein and they're luminous neon heavy bodied acrylics. I'm just going to take a little bit of water on my brush now and pick up some of my phthalo blue, a little bit more white, and I'm just going to start creating some sweeps. And then I'm going to mix some of my red with my blue. And this will give me somewhat of a warm, smoky violet color, very muted. And I'm going to come around the edge and just sweep some of that in. I'm going to switch over to a number 6 filbert brush now. I'm going to get it just a little bit wet, and I'm going to take some black. I'll just place it right here, mixing it a little bit with that muted plum color, smoky frosty plum that we used for around the clouds in the sky. And I'll just take a little bit more of each white, red, blue, and black. Okay, after I mix it up, I'm going to get a little bit on the tip of my brush, and I'm just going to start right in the middle of the canvas. I'm going to line my brush up. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. You can go a little lower or a little higher. I'm just going to pull gently like this to create an instant forest in the background. So I'm bringing up some height in the middle of that. I'll add a little shadow. I'm going to add a little bit more around the side here. Pull in a little bit more of the white and just a little bit more of the red. So I'm bringing it up a few shades and warming it up a little bit more with the red. A little bit more white. A little bit more of the white and the red again. And I'll just add a few little highlights. Okay, so now that this has had a chance to just set here for a little bit, I'm gonna make that color again, black, red, blue. And I'm gonna start tapping in some branches. Very, very beginner friendly. Just simple little taps. I always like to leave a little space at the top before starting my branches. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit of that white tinted with the yellow and the red. Any tinted white, any color you want, you can add here. I'm just going to add a little bit on top, as well as the trees. So I'll mix that up, and I'll start adding a few taps to the trees on those branches. Remember, this is in the background. You don't have to worry about every single little detail on the tree. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add a little mountain right here. And for the mountain, I'm going to use a little bit of black, blue, some white. I want it to be a darker, more of a Prussian blue. So that's why I'm adding the black to it. And I don't have a ton of paint on my brush. Just a little bit. My brush is flat, and I'm going to add a mountain first, coming down, kind of zigzagging diagonally, and then a sweep, and then I'm going to come around the left side, and we're going to be covering up some of this right when we bring our frame in. And I'm going to come right up here. We want this left side of the mountain to be darker and our shadow side, and then this side's going to be lighter. I'm going to wash my brush out and take a little bit of my white and whatever it might be tinted with here, peachy, yellowy. And then I'm going to start off the top, the side, and just pull and sweep. And I'll do the same here, just with a bit of water, nothing else on my brush. I want to bring it over just a little bit more so I'm not cutting my mountain right in half. That's boring. We want to either exaggerate it more to the right or more to the left. So in this case, we're going over to the right side and making that part of our shadow. I'm going to add some extra white. I'm going to add a little bit more to the trees. And I'm going to come in here and add a dark river. And I think I'm going to keep that kind of deep purple instead of adding some white and black to make that smoky plum. I'm going to add just more of these colors and keep it dark. So I'm going to start very skinny right where the base of the mountain is. Just a few little wiggles like that, side to side, and then I'm going to start making it wider. I'm going to pick up some more paint. Take a little bit of that, again, the two, red and phthalo. Line my brush up on the left side, and just to really give this more of an edge and depth, I'm just going to catch a few areas here. Just gentle pulls and flicks off to the left side. Okay, then I'm going to come in here and add some more trees, and I'm going to use, once again, the red and the blue. See, these ones are further away, so they're lighter in color. So I'm going to start right about here. I'll add one a little leaning like this. I'm still just using my number 6 filbert brush. And then I'll start pushing and tapping left and right and in the center. And then a shadow. I'm going to add one right about here as well. And it'll stand out more when I add a little bit of snow on it. I don't want it to be the same height as this one on the right. I want it to be a little bit shorter, not leaning the same way. And then I'm going to take some white and mix it up a little bit more. So you're just creating a lighter pastel shade. So all I did was add a little bit of white in there. Now this one has a little bit more blue in it. That's why it's more of a frosty grape color. And this one has a little bit more of the red in it. So I'm just going to take that red and then just a little bit here and there. I like that it's a little bit darker and has a bit more shadows than the ones in the distance. I just want to add a little bit more to this one here. Okay, then I'm going to come up. Pick up a little bit of white and scoop up and over. This is going to give me height, like a nice layer of snow covered ground above the river. Also add some snow covered rocks just by creating little half ovals or half circles. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a mist with hardly any paint in the tip of my brush, just to set that mountain back a little farther. I'm going to add a little bit of turquoise, aquamarine with some white. And I'll just add a few little brush strokes of this color. Look how pretty it looks. See, it's those muted tones along with that smoky kind of almost like a tone of gray, like a really warm one, that gives this a bit of a vintage feel. Now I'm gonna just add a little bit of this in the sky too, so everything kind of ties together. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of the turquoise, a little bit of phthalo blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of this for some movement and ripples in the water. And then a little bit more turquoise, just a tiny bit on the very tip of my brush. And I think we should add a little house, and I'm gonna add some yellow, red, and black to make a dark brown color. I'll take a little bit more. And I think right about here I could have a little house. So we're just gonna add a little diagonal scoop, scoop, scoop. Now, by all means, use a smaller brush if you want, but you can do it with a smaller filbert brush. Okay, then I'm just going to add a little bit more of a peak for the top of the house, and then we're going to add a line on either side. Fill the front of the house in, and the side. I'm going to take a bit of black and go under the roof line. Just make it a little darker and more visible. We'll have a little door somewhere in here. Okay, I'm gonna go back over to my brown, add a little bit of white in there. Remember, the house is small and far away, so don't get lost in trying to add too many details. I'm just going to take a bit of that frosty plum color and add a little bit on the roof. Add a little chimney with a bit of black, and I'll just add it towards the end of the house. I'm going to switch over to this little round brush. It's kind of like a liner brush. It's small. It says it's number 2 on here, but it all depends on the brand of your brushes. So don't go by the numbers, because some people's brushes may be really big at a number 2 and others may be way smaller than this. So just, you know, choose a really small brush that you feel comfortable with for adding some smaller details. So what I'm going to do now is come in with a little bit more black, no water on my brush. I'm going to place my pinky somewhere I know it's nice and dry, because that's going to help me steady my hand. And I'm going to come inside the roof line here and add a few little dabs here. And bring the black down a little bit lower. I want there to be a more exaggerated lower roof line. And then I'm going to take just a little bit more and add a skinny little rectangle here for the door, and a few little lines where I'm going to add my window. Okay, for the window, I'm going to have a clean brush with some white. I'm going to take a little bit of that red and yellow and dab wherever I want to have some windows. So I want to have a little window in the loft. One I think is going to be here in the doorway. Maybe there's a kitchen there. And then I'm going to get rid of that, most of the paint out of my brush, and then go in for some white, work most of the paint off my brush so it's kind of dry. And then down here, the base of the house, I'm going to have a little bit of that light reflecting. I'm going to add some snow, or not snow, some smoke coming out of the chimney by taking a bit of white and a little bit of that smoky plum color. You can use just straight white if you want. I'm going to add a little dab at the top of the chimney and then start pushing and smushing around. I'll take a little bit more of that color, sweep inside the roof line, leave a little space for a shadow for your chimney. I'm going to add a little bit of black and blue and mix them up. And I'm going to make this look even more 3D by adding a little bit of this black and blue right under our snow. Anywhere we have some little snow-covered rocks. And that really makes it look even more 3D. and makes it look separate from the snow-covered ground above. Okay, I think we could paint a little fence. I'm just gonna get a little bit more red. If you're curious, this is the red that I'm using for my neon. And I've got a little bit of that blue and black in my brush and a bit of water. I'm going to take some yellow and red, mix that up. A little bit more of the blue and black. And we'll make a nice reddish brown color. You can use any color you want for your fence, any shade of red, brown, anything you want. And I'm going to start adding a fence off the side here. So I'll just start adding one little fence board there. I'll bring another one back over here. I like those old, leaning, almost broken, neglected looking fences. I think they add the most character. So they're just going to get smaller and smaller and closer together until they just disappear. And we can add a little shadow just by taking that color down the fence again. And then we're going to attach those fence posts, just barely touching back there. And just bringing a little wiggly line through. I'm going to add some snow, and I'm going to take my blue, a little bit of red, maybe a little bit of turquoise, make a little bit more of a muted color, more on the turquoise side. And remember, you can make yours any color you want. I've got quite a bit here on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to add a little pile of snow on the top and in between those fence boards. It's going to be a little bit lighter as it gets farther away. And then create a few little lumps like this. Okay, so I like how this is looking. I'd actually like to add a little waterfall coming down here. So what I'm going to do is go back over to my 30 filbert brush, and I'm going to take some of my blue, a little bit of black, and I'm just going to fill this area in here. I want it to be dark so that my waterfall will stand out. Okay, the next color I'm going to take is some turquoise, And right here is where I want it to drop. So I'm gonna go to the center and then down. I'll take a little bit of white next with that turquoise on there, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Go over and down. And then I'm just gonna shake my hand, shake and tap, 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 to give it a little bit of movement down at the base, and then sweep up a little bit from the bottom up. I'm gonna go over to a smaller brush. I'm just going to use my filbert brush, my number 6 again, and I'm going to take a little bit more of the white. I'll have that little dab and shake around again. Got a little bit more blue in with the white on my brush. Just make it a few shades lighter. And just make it a little bit bigger on this side. A little bit wider. Okay, I think I'm ready to start coming in with the frame now. Just looking for my number 16 filbert brush again. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to get this brush wet, and I'm going to take some black, some blue, some turquoise. Just take all of those colors, make a nice dark bluey green base, and I'm going to go around the outside. I'm going to start at the top here. I'm going to take a little bit of water on my brush, those same colors again. And I'm going to come right down here and front of the waterfall. So now this frame is in the foreground and we're looking through it like it's a window. It doesn't have to be even on either side. I don't want to lose too much of the mountain, so I'm making it thinner on this side, and I can afford to make it a little wider on this side. Okay, I'm just going to lightly scumble in a little bit of that black and blue. Hope you guys are enjoying this one and this live premiere and chatting amongst yourself down in the live chat. Thank you so much for all of your donations today. through Super Chat, Super Thanks. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that and show your support. It really helps fund the making of these tutorials. I've got well over 700 here, lots more on Patreon. Okay, so what I want to do now is start coming in with some holly. And I'm going to use a smaller filbert brush. I'm going to be using my number 6 filbert brush for this. Okay, so the first color I'm going to use is going to be for the base, and it's going to be our dark shade. I'm going to be taking yellow. You can use any yellow that you want. A cool yellow I prefer for the holly, and I'm going to take a little bit of black. So this way we have a nice dark green. Now this is more of a olive green. If you want to make it a little bit cooler, you can add some blue. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white in there. Mix up some more paint. Okay, so I want it to come over top of the frame slightly. So I'm going to point, scoop, scoop. Paint it inside. And I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to outline slightly. There's lots of different types of holly out there. Some of them have a really defined white outline to them. And we'll just add a little line inside like that. And a little bit of white really close next to the line. And then come back in with a little bit more of the black and the green. If you want it to just be a little bit more visible for some more shadows. But I'm going to start to pick up the pace before my paint dries out. And I'm going to layer and add another one. Scoop, scoop, scoop. Okay, then a little bit of white. Scoop, scoop, scoop. They don't have to be perfect. I'll add a few here as well. Add an extra scoop in that one. The white could be little bits of frost too. Just add a little bit of turquoise. See how you can go back and you can add a little bit more shadow if you want it to be a little darker. I just love working with acrylics. They're so forgiving. I actually like that they dry quickly. And there are things you can do to slow down the drying aspect of them. Okay, I'm gonna add another one in here. And come in with a little bit of white. Scoop, scoop. Don't forget we're going to be adding our little holly berries as well. Now you could add some white ones if you wanted to paint mistletoe. Add a little bit more in here. Add just a little bit of water to my brush to loosen some of that paint out. And then just continue along down the side. And then I'll come back and add some white. Mix up some more paint here. I just add a little one right down here. I'll just add a little kind of greenery around the edge here. Add some twinkling lights. Okay, I'm gonna go down to a number 2 round brush. I'm gonna get it a little bit wet, and I'm gonna take some white, a little bit of water, just to loosen that paint up. And I'm gonna start adding a little bit more highlights. Just following that scoop, you want to make it really, them to be really pointy. Okay, just got a little bit more water on my brush to thin this paint out. And I'm just going to go inside and make some of them look a little frosty. Barely any paint on my brush. This will make some of the leaves look a little shiny and frosty at the same time. You can tint your white a little bit with some green. Just make sure I have a dry brush though. So once you mix your color up, take the majority of the paint off. Okay, so now we can come in and add our holly berries, and I'm going to be using a little bit of black first with the red to make a dark base first. I'll take a little bit more. Add as many berries as you want. Some of them have quite a few. And don't be afraid to layer them. Okay, mixing up some more paint. This one's really big here. I might make that 2 or 3 in there later on when I come over with my highlights. Okay, so I just took a few minutes to dry this layer off, washed my brush off, and I'm going to come in with my red now, just straight red. I'm going to add that inside. You can make them smaller, leaving more of the dark base around it so they look layered. Right here I've got a little bit too big of a blob, so I'll make one big blob into 2 or 3 berries. Another one here. It's too big, so I'm going to make it 3. I'm really having fun with this painting. If you're just tuning in now, I'm making this up on the spot. I know a lot of people are like, how do you do that? I have an easier time making my paintings up and a more enjoyable time doing it than if I have to go from a photo. Once in a while, I'll use a photo if I need to for something. Like I can't just make up a horse or like a face. I need to go by something. If it's just a figure, like something like somebody from behind, I can do that. But 9 times out of 10, I'm just painting for you guys and filming just on the spot, intuitively, from imagination, and making it a step-by-step for you all. Okay, so now we have our bright red base. We need to add a highlight, and I'll be using a little bit of white for that. I'm gonna take a little bit of white in here and just twirl it around, moving it in with some of that red. Now once this dries, it may dry a little bit darker. Acrylic paint does that, so don't be disheartened or disappointed. It's just normal. So you should always check back on your paintings the next day or a few hours later, however long it takes for the painting to dry. And just know that it's normal that you may have to go back. I'm gonna mix up a little bit of red to make like a light pink here. You can just use straight white if you want. I think it's kind of nice to have some of these a little bit frosty looking, and I think this color, this shade, works well. And it's adding another pastel color to this painting, and I like that. I love pastel colors. Yeah, so I like showing you guys and encouraging you to use your imagination when painting, and of course paint along with me. Now with a clean brush, I'm going to take some black, some blue, and I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow in and around these holly leaves to make them stand out a little bit more. And add a little bit of a shadow in between the berries. So just a little bit of black here and there. So we do have the blue and black first base that we used. There's a little bit of turquoise in there as well. But by adding a little bit of black here and there will also really set this off. Okay, I'm gonna go in, dab, 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 a little bit of black. And I'm just going to add a few little squiggles in here. I'm going to be adding some lights too. Right along here, I'm going to quickly just pop over this area and add some little bushes with my 1-inch angle mop brush. You can use any mop brush that you have, even a fan brush or a filbert brush for this if you don't have this one. And I'm going to take a little bit of white and turquoise. tap tap, and just put a little bit along the side. I'll rinse that brush out, and then I'm going to go back over to my round brush. And add a little bit of depth in here. I'm going to add some lights, and I'm just going to take a little bit of white and yellow, add a few little dabs, staggered. I'm going to soften the light in the house a little bit here. I'm just going to take a little bit more of the yellow and go around, making these have a little frosty glow, and then back in with white, dab, re-add some white wherever I need to. So glad you guys are able to join me for these lives. They're just so much fun. It's more fun having a live audience. I'm going to add a little bow right here at the top before we call this painting all done. And I'm going to use my small filbert brush. This is a size 0. Just go with the smallest you have, or you can use a round brush. And I'm going to start it with, well, I may as well use a little bit of this blue. I've got lots left over. Blue, black, and red. A nice, really dark base. I'm going to add a couple of rounded triangles. So now we're putting this bow over top of that holly there. We'll add a little dab in the center. And I'm going to make a few bows, so like a double bow. And we'll add the next one a little bit smaller. So you're going to start it, you're going to leave a little space from the one on the top that we just did before you start the next one. Looks kind of like a butterfly right now, doesn't it? And then we'll add the ribbon. So we'll bring it down scoop wider here and then wiggle up. And then the next one, wiggle, wiggle, make it a little bit longer. A little longer and wider. Okay, I'm going to dry it off, and then we're going to come in with our bright red and then a little bit of white to add the highlights. So just like the holly berries. Okay, I've got my number 3 round brush that I'm going to use for the ribbon, and I'm going to come over top with red to start. So we're just going to paint inside it. We're going to do a little dab here for the second smaller bow for the knot, and then we'll do a bigger dab for the bigger bow, the first one. Taking some more red. We're going to go inside. This bow is starting to look more visible now and less like a butterfly. Now we can come in with that second bow. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take a little bit of white, mix that white with red, and we're going to add a few little lines. Two little dabs there, one here. I'm going to start my highlights right here. That way it'll look like it's kind of ripply in the fabric and the ribbon. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of pink and yellow. So the pink from the red and a little bit of yellow and white. I'm going to add some warm highlights here on the snow from the sun. And I'm going to add a little bit more light in here. Add a few more highlights on either side of the water. Brush over the water at the back to make it look farther away. Little dry brush. We'll highlight on these rocks. And to finish this off, I'm going to add another layer, just a little bit lighter here. So not a lot of paint on my brush. On my filbert, this one is a number 6. Use any size that you're comfortable with. Okay, see how it just stands out a little bit better? I'm going to do the same thing over on this one. And we still have a little bit of that gray in between colors. Go over this base of this waterfall a little bit to soften it up. I'm just using a tiny bit of this peachy color here. Dry brush, barely anything on my brush. That's how you'll get that look. One very last thing. Another liner or round brush. A little bit of black. Just want this to be a little bit more visible. Just outlining a little bit. Make sure the outside of my ribbon is really dark. And same with the end of my ribbon. All these little shadows and highlights are really going to make your painting 3D. It makes a big difference. Well, you can use any red you want for your berries, like I mentioned, and if you're not sure, I can just recommend a few right now. Crimson red, scarlet red. Well, okay, I'm going to call this painting all done. I want to wish you guys happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all of your amazing support here on my channel, Patreon, and my other channel. I'll list all 3 of those down below if you'd like to subscribe. And have a wonderful day. Don't forget to tag me in your posts. I love to see your versions. And I'll see you guys all soon in my next video. Take care. Bye.